Yeah. We're on, you know.
Yeah, here it comes. I am with the school now.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the November 14th Litchfield Budget Committee meeting. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next up is public input. There is no public input this evening, so we will move on. Review additions, changes to the agenda. I believe we have one programming note this evening in which we were going to review the warrant articles. However, that will be delayed to a future meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we still fully intend to have warrant articles.
Okay, good. Any other changes to the agenda from the committee? Okay. Hearing none, we have the minutes from October 17th that were forwarded out to the committee. Hopefully everyone has had a chance to review.
I make a motion to accept the minutes of the 17th.
We have a motion by Mr. Pascucci,
I'll second it.
second by Ms. Couture. Additional discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0-1. Okay, moving on to town business. Are there any general updates or information you'd like to share with the board, Mr. Brunel?
Sure, so you already mentioned the warrant articles. The board will be taking up the majority of the warrant articles, the monetary ones, on our meeting coming this Monday. They're out there in draft format, but they've not been approved by the board yet, so that's why we're not gonna discuss them tonight. I wanna say there are 5 or 6 monetary type ones. Some of them you're already aware of, like the highway match grant and all that kind of thing. But they'll be ready for the next meeting for review.
Okay. You can plan on them on the 21st?
Yeah.
Okay.
But we're gonna give you what we have approved. It may not be all of them, but hopefully it's all of them.
Okay.
All right. We're still discussing some that are out there that don't really make a lot of sense yet, so the board hasn't come to a consensus yet where that makes sense going forward with it. Police contract is still out there. I believe the union was due to approve it this week, and the board has to take action on it at their next meeting, so that's still coming. No idea what it looks like yet at this point. We'll talk about health plan, but the board is looking at our health plans and looking at ways of continuing to save money if we can. I think the notes in the budget, I think it represents, we're looking at probably an 8% or so increase over last year's. And the representative from the health group is coming in on our next meeting to discuss options. So we're still looking at ways to lower that down. That's really all I have for general updates. Anything else, unless you think of anything else?
No, I think we're,
Okay.
I have a question. Watching the meeting, the administrator contract's going into renegotiation, right?
So, no. So his contract is not up until April, but we're obligated to let him know whether or not we intend to renew the contract. So we'll start that process, but probably not until after we get through all this. I mean, we may look at it a little bit,
Yeah.
but for the most part, it won't start until.
Now, just so I understand how it works, I know like the police contract, I mean, it's done through the union and Board of Selectmen representative? right?
Yeah,
Okay.
there are 2 representatives from the Board of Selectmen that represent the board. They negotiate, they bring back the negotiated, what they've come to some agreement with, and the board needs to approve it.
And it's similar to the way the school board does it with the teachers' union, then it
Yeah, very
comes
similar.
to here for this board for either recommendation or not.
Mm-hmm.
And then the non-union, it's, you guys decide whether to put it in the budget or not.
Correct.
And then it comes actually to this board again for either recommendation or not. Does anything like that happen with the town administrator?
No.
It's just the deal between the town of between the
Correct.
Board of Selectmen?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Thank you.
I had a question too. John, could you tell me what's going on down at Dara Pond? What are you building down there?
Oh, it's the gazebo, not the
it's a
gazebo.
pavilion.
Pavilion, yeah, pavilion, bandstand. It started out as a bandstand, but it's a pavilion, overhead coverage. It's been pretty much done by donations, I believe, right?
It's a combination of the donations and the funds that were raised for the
675th or.
the last anniversary.
Yeah.
That were set aside at that point for some sort of gazebo type thing, so.
We had talked about that
Last meeting.
last meeting with benches and.
Right.
Yeah, yeah, because there was some benches in there we thought were being allocated for that.
And these aren't benches.
No, this, right,
No,
no,
there's-
no,
Yeah,
things have to go
this is to
underneath it.
cover the
This is to cover the
benches,
benches and
yes.
stuff, so,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, but it's all been, like I said, done from leftover funds from our 675th, right?
2.
2, thank you. And then some donations from the public. so, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Nope. Moving on to the review of the remaining accounts. We have 2 that are remaining aside from warrant articles, 4155 Personnel Administration and 4196 Town Insurance. I believe the objective for tonight is just to review the current information, but the committee will have to re-review once new and updated numbers are presented.
Yeah, so we'll give you some insight to what we think is going to occur, but the board will be looking at them again this meeting coming up and probably a subsequent meeting, but there is adjustments that'll occur. So we'll give you kind of a look at what is going to happen, but remember, the whole board hasn't seen it. They've probably been made aware of some of it, but there's been no action taken. So
Okay.
what you're seeing is what was approved back when we originally approved the lines, with no adjustments, so.
Yeah, correct. So the handouts that were provided are the exact same numbers that were originally provided.
Yeah.
several weeks ago.
There are some notes in the bottom of those handouts that Jason put in for me that make sure that we kind of give you some insight to what may happen or what may
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, and as you'll see, these are largely mechanical. There's not a lot of policy decision behind these. They just fall in place based on the rest of where the budget falls, or they're an external number that we pay the bill, so.
So as we've done with all the reviews, Jason will walk us through, and you can ask questions, I guess, during Willie's walking through, if that makes sense. so.
Yeah, walk us through.
Okay. First item, personnel administration, you see it's called health insurance. The line's called health insurance. For the past, this current year that we're in now, and we're in 2014, we have been receiving refunds from Health Trust. Part of the ongoing disagreement with Secretary of State's office and the like about how the health insurance pools and insurance pools return their funds to members. In the past, we used to just get a discount on a future year as we stayed part of the pool. They've revived something that went away about 20 years ago, which was sending an actual check to the town for their reimbursement of the refund from prior years. So, what we're looking at for 2014 is our refund from 2012, which means we physically get a check back in, we book part of it as revenue, but also part of that money is our employee money and retiree money. That's all commingled with that. So we book the whole thing, we keep part of it for ourselves, and then we have to write the checks back out to all the people for their share of the refund. What we're likely looking at there is getting a refund in the vicinity of about $16,000. We will have to pay out about $6,500 back for the parts that aren't reimbursement of our money. So it is a delightful headache in spreadsheets
I'm
to
assuming you
do.
have some type of process to manage the different ins and outs of that.
Yeah, I mean, basically what we have is they give us, our refund is, they treat us as 3 groups. Retirees, which is basically, they're affiliated with us, but it's a pass-through. So, but we get their money back, so we write them a check back in the entirety for what their share is. And then we have police union and non-union, just sort of is the way that they break them up. So we go back through and figure out, say, for all other town employees, police union, calculate what we paid in, we calculate what each employee paid in, and of course that varies based on plan and the like, figure out what everyone's share of the total paid is, divvy up the refund by that amount, and then send out checks accordingly. And then figure out, some people pay pre-tax, some people pay post-tax, so it's it is a gigantic headache to return, in some cases, $100 to people. But it is the fairest way to do it. Next few items, short-term disability insurance. Our monthly premium is about $780 a month. Social Security and Medicare for those employees who have earnings that are eligible under those. Again, sort of separate spreadsheet that takes everybody and their shares of eligible earnings, run it through, kick out a final number on that. So again, any place if we adjust wages anywhere, there's a feedback mechanism back into this line. So if later in the budget you add 2 more police officers, I need to go back in and fix accordingly. The next few, employee retirement, firefighter retirement, police retirement. Again, mechanical rate pass-through from the New Hampshire retirement system. Since we run on a calendar year and the retirement system runs on a fiscal year, the last 6 months of 2013 reflected a significant increase in our share of retirement costs. So we ate half of that this year, and the balance of that we are seeing for the first time in the 2014 budget. There is no rate increase in the next fiscal year. So July 1, the rate is not going up again. So what you're seeing here is the next 6 months of the current rate.
So did we budget for the last 6 months?
We did, because if you look historically, you'll see last year it jumped. If you look from 12 to 13, there was a big jump, and that was the 6-month cost.
Okay.
And then again here, you're looking at about a $40,000 increase in retirement. The unemployment tax, this is another pass-through cost. Good news there is we actually are expecting a decrease in that cost of about $4,500. But, so when we go back, that's one of the numbers we'll be revisiting. Unfortunately, that $4,500 that we will likely save in that line, we will be spending in the next line. Workers' comp, this is still an unknown a part of this is still unknown for us. So I'm not sure when the board may be able to finalize this action. We have a premium. Our base premium we expect to go up about $4,500. The pool we buy this in also has been doing this return of surplus premium holiday type of thing. In workers' comp, it's a lot easier because we pay 100% of the bill, so we just take the 100% of the credit back. I don't have to distribute it to anybody but ourselves. So this, so what's happened is we received, we're a premium holiday this year. I expect we'll receive one next year. It hasn't been confirmed yet. So, obviously, that's, if you look at my details now, I budget estimated a $20,000 premium holiday. So that's a big swing in this line one way or the other if that doesn't come through. So it's a hard way for us to budget, but this is a result of apparently trying to make the insurance pools fair to taxpayers.
So a question for you, right? 473,000 is the projected number approximately, right? That's about 9% of the overall budget. So it's a big chunk of the overall picture.
It is.
Right, so a $38,000 increase is a significant number.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess the way, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is fixed cost.
It is largely fixed cost. Obviously, your number of employees pushes it up or down a little bit, but, this is sort of all things being equal, and again, your retirement pass-through cost is a $40,000 increase. It is, the retirement cost is basically your full increase, once you net out some of the other ups and downs. So, in terms of our overall department budgets, yeah, it's a big jump. And it's a big jump in our overall bottom line that we're looking at. And unfortunately, there is not a heck of a lot of control we have over those items.
Well, it is a fixed cost, but it's based upon previous decisions that are made. So in other words, it is what it is based, this number could go down or up depending upon previous decisions that are made. So.
I don't understand how it could go down.
The only way it can go down is we reduce our staff.
Well, right, so the point is.
Well, just to say it, the
Right,
only way
right.
it's gonna go down is that
Absolutely.
we have to decide to furlough or.
Well, the only reason why I bring it up, because a lot of times you do hear, it's a fixed cost, there's nothing we can do about it. it's not entirely correct. There is something that could be done about it. I'm not saying you want to do something about it, but it could be done. So I don't want people thinking that you just got to pay it, because I do know a lot of times in businesses, when these so-called fixed costs go up, they have to make changes elsewhere. And more employee contributions, changing the staff, whatever it might be. So for anybody watching, it's fixed based upon decisions that
Right.
the
but-
governing body's made.
That impact other accounting lines.
So I just wanted to make sure
Yeah, and it's
we
also-
discuss it properly.
And it's also fair to state that the governing body didn't make all the changes. The governing body presented ideas that the residents voted for, in addition to hiring more police officers or any other full-time employees. When these fixed costs, which we do find as fixed because they're related to something, a body that we can't change right at the moment, we do look at other places in the budget to lower, to try to minimize that impact to the bottom line. And you'll see that this year, we did do that also. We understand that we need to live within a confine of that one number, and we're trying to live as close to we can to what has been consistent over the years. But there are costs that are going up that we really don't have a whole lot of control over. And the big, as I've said before, our big knobs are employees. And, I'm not getting, we're not in a situation where we think that makes sense to reduce our employees. In some cases, we don't have enough employees, right, based on what people recommend.
No, that wasn't the point I was debating. I was just pointing to the way we talk about it and educate people watching about it. Because, again, a lot of times we compare it to the average homeowner, and the same thing.
Well, I could put less food on my table if I get rid of my kids, but
Well,
I'm not
no,
going to get rid of my kids. I mean, that's the example you use it, but
Well,
that's the example,
let me
right?
give
My
you-
medical
no.
insurance will go down, my food bills will go down if I get rid of one of my teenagers.
Let me give you my example. For
Not doing
example, a
it.
lot of things go up in the house. For example, if you have to drive to work, you're not, right, your gas went up a little bit, and then most employees now are finding that because of the healthcare changes, they have to, the employee has to contribute more to the health policy, and in some cases, they're not getting a raise to offset that. So these so-called fixed costs are going up. You don't have a choice. You don't have a choice to get rid of your 7-year-old either, but the point is you can't get rid of them, so that you still have the same fixed number coming into the house.
Sure.
So therefore, you have to find other places to cut, and it's tough decisions. So, and those are the real tough decisions that everybody has to make, both
Right.
personal and in government. So I don't want to make it sound like to the taxpayers that are watching us now, hey, these are fixed costs, there's nothing we could do, therefore you have to give us more money. Most likely, they are going to have to get a tax increase to pay for it, but it's not that cut and dry, and I want to make sure we talk about it.
It's true, it's not that cut and dry, and I also don't want the impression that the board hasn't made other changes in the budget in addition to either raising more cost to our employees. Because you talk about insurance, co-pays are going up, there's no way around it. For us to keep our healthcare service down, we may have to raise co-pays, and that's a direct impact to the employee's pocket.
Right.
Right? And we're doing that not because not because we don't want to do, we would not rather not do that because, it hurts the employees, but we also realize we have residents that can't afford taxes, and we want to live within a certain budget line. So we are making adjustments. I just want to make sure that it doesn't come across as we didn't make any hard changes or are looking at other ways to continue saving money in other locations in the budget. We are.
No, fair enough. Right now, we're about a 3.26% tax increase, and I just want to be honest, when we discuss that to the, if nothing else changes, we're over 3% tax increase, and I just want to make sure we properly discuss it and along the honest,
Yeah.
transparent terms. So what we
But-
just did was honest and transparent.
Yeah, and it's also important to note, too, that over the default budget, which we were operating in this year, we're asking for less than 3% increase for the budget we're coming forward to. So, considering the costs that have gone up, hydrant costs, the retirement costs and all that, I think we've done a fairly good job at trying to keep it within the town's means. So,
Jason, this doesn't reflect the changes we made in the fire department, correct? We made some hour changes in the fire department.
No, this would not reflect those changes yet, because this is still what the board approved, so those all have to be backfed in, so,
So you're
yep.
doing all, when we do, have it all resolved, then you,
Right, rather than changing the numbers several times, but yeah, that's,
Any other questions? Town insurance.
town insurance. This is, the, same kind of situation. This is all of our property liability insurance. The good news is our base rate here is decreasing by about 5%. Our rate, our base rate has managed to decrease regularly each year. However, this is yet again one of those places where I bring up the contribution holiday and the return of surplus. There was a return of surplus in 2013. It looks as if right now there is no return of surplus for 2014. So our rate's gone down, but there's no return of surplus. So based on what we know now, our best estimate is most likely that with that line you're looking at, we'll see an increase of
What
about
changed?
$3,000. What changed? A decision from a hearing officer requiring a spin-off of the property liability trust when they created a workers' comp division. The Secretary of State's hearing officer decided that that subsidy needed to be repaid. So the only way it can be repaid is from the property liability trust back. Now, that may all come to naught. There are no shortages of challenges and filings. This whole situation is before the Supreme Court. So where it goes, I don't know. That said, their prudent management of property liability trust is if we have to return $17 million to between former subgroups, they need to repay that before they then therefore will not
Give
have a
us that.
surplus. So the unraveling of all of these trusts has created greater uncertainty for us in budgeting. And my fear is more volatile costs. But I can't control that.
Line 525, what have we spent this year in that one?
We have spent,
515.85.
yeah, that sounds, I would say that that's,
$515.85.
Right.
What did we spend last year?
we didn't have it there last year.
Pardon?
We didn't have it there last year. We had some of these strewn, $1,000 here, $2,000 here across several different departments. The challenge, and that's why we kind of backed off, is last year we aggregated sort of the places where we had these $1,000 set different places, and, you know.
Came up with $595.
Oh, last year, yeah, it may well have been by kind of the ins and outs of all of it, although it wasn't entirely clear in some cases. In some cases, those deductibles may have been charged to an equipment line or the like, because I don't think every department had one. So, you know, what we do here is our insurance for, you know, has a $1,000 deductible. So if we can look in the crystal ball and tell me how many incidents I'm going to have, they're going to be more than $1,000. We're all set. I mean, we've, to this point this year, only had that $515.85 of expenses,
Winter's coming.
you know. So
Winter's coming.
So why are you budgeting 1.5?
That was
why am I budgeting 1.5? Because I budgeted, what did we have last year, 4 or 5? Whatever we had last year.
Yeah.
We went from 5 to 4, because you figure 4 incidents at $1,000, 1 incident per quarter seemed to be a reasonable basis. This year so far has been a good year. And we also have, you know, so this is basically 1 full incident. And in some cases, when we're under the $1,000 deductible, we pay the full freight. So I kind of looked at this year and said, well, we spent 5 so far, and I'll leave 1 real incident in my budget. That's where we ended up at 15.
So if we cut this out, can you use the surplus from this year for next year?
You mean, we can't encumber it.
No,
We don't have a bill.
my accidents are not known for next
Right.
year.
No, we
So,
can't. The short answer is no, we can't.
yeah, that one's kind of pushing the envelope on, yes, I'm setting aside money for the future accidents that I don't know about. I don't know, you know,
My
think-
problem, Jason, was when I thought I got the right number for 2012.
Mhm.
And I must have gone to an aggregated from the report, but, because I had 595, and it looked like you're running about 500 or 600 last year, and the same thing this year.
I don't see how that can be, Bill, because I know in the fire department alone, there was probably 2 or 3 incidents that cost
Yeah.
that kind of money. So I think the problem is the charge has been charged in other lines and not tracked as, you know, as a deductible.
You know.
But I think it's fair to say that we'll have 1 deductible type event every year.
Which may go up to 1,000, may not.
Well, it's all, deductible's $1,000, so if the damage is over $1,000, we gotta pay the $1,000.
Right, and
Right.
if it's less than,
Yeah, we paid out of pocket.
Right, which is what we've done, this year, but we've been lucky this year. I'd love to say we're not gonna have any accidents, but, and my concern is, I'll be back here next year and, it'll have not been as smooth a year and,
say, oh, that's an oddball year, Jason.
yeah, right, oh, yeah, that's rare, you didn't need 6 incidents last year, yeah, I don't know,
We'll throw out the highs and the lows.
yeah, exactly. So, anyway, that's what we're looking at.
I also show $595.
Pardon?
I also show $595.
Now, where'd you get that from? Maybe I got it from you.
Well, it's just, it's the number that's tied to account 419690-525 as actual.
Yeah, but remember, those lines were sprinkled across all the other budgets.
Right, because prior to us tracking them this way, departments for a long time would charge their vehicle repair line or an internal department line. They never broke them out separately. And so, one of the things I've been trying to do is break them out separately so we can see where they all are. Because inevitably too, with sort of insurance payments in and out, this gives me one place from an accounting point of view to process all of those things. So, unfortunately, I'm not sure how great your history is going to be for you here. So,
1,500.
That's, right.
Okay. Any other questions on town insurance? Okay, and we'll table warrant articles. We'll move over to voting.
Okay.
Voting tonight, we have the police department, 4210.1, support services, 4210.5, mosquito district, 4411.2. We have animal control, 4414.1, health agencies, 4415. We have the infamous information technology budget, 4150.2, and library,
I don't know why it's infinite.
4550.2. We've been talking about it now for weeks.
All right, so I'll start, I guess. I'd like to make a motion that we approve for budget 4210.10, Police Administration, for the bottom line number of $1,390,934.
We have a motion by Mr. Brunel. Do we have a second?
$1,390,934.
There's a $20,000 adjustment
See that was
that's not added in correctly,
Uh-oh.
under 910.
no, on the old paper copy.
Oh, okay.
On the old, yes,
Under 910,
Still
detail
cost
vehicle reimbursement.
yeah.
So can you just say the number again then?
1,390,934.
It is a net year-over-year increase of $72,030.
That helps me, because I couldn't reconcile some other
Yep.
numbers.
Yeah, that's,
That threw me off when I first saw it. So we have a motion by Mr. Brunel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Spencer.
So that's
I asked a question at the last meeting, and Mr. Brunel did send the answer about the mileage. I just want to confirm that because I had to look off the Cindy's computer now because I couldn't find it. Car number 6 has currently 65,000 miles on it, right?
That was when I gave the mileage. I think I was in it the other day, and I think it has 68 in it now, but that was what, 2 weeks, a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago?
Okay. Do you remember last year, at this time, the 2 cars we replaced, how many miles they had on them at the time we were talking about it? If you don't have that answer, that's okay. I just
I
trying
have
to
it.
refresh my
Maybe
memory.
it may take me a few minutes to get it. I think there are
I'm just trying to get it.
80 to 90,000 miles, I think, something like that. Just double check on a second. I try to purge that whole discussion from my head, apparently. I'm looking.
Yeah, you know what, yeah, you're right. Actually, I'm sorry, I see it here. According to last year's paperwork, Car 4 had 75,000 miles on it. Car 3 had 79,000 miles on it as of 11/8.
12.
Mr. Chairman, we're getting into discussion on this now.
So that's all I wanted.
Yeah,
Other
so
motions?
I'd like to make a motion on this to get the discussion on the floor properly. I'd like to amend line item 760, police car and cruiser purchase from 64,500 to 51,250.
Second.
Yeah, get on the floor for discussion, and what that does, it funds one replacement rather than two. And it brings us back to where we've been on a 2-1-2-1 replacement schedule. Personally, I have a big problem with the increase in the police budget. It is really one of the major drivers on the town budget. And I look at this as one possibility of a way of bringing that down personally, but I'm not gonna get in any discussion about the mileage. I'll leave that to other people. That's my rationale, is just we can't afford to do all this.
Okay, so I'll continue the discussion where Mr. Spencer left off. Obviously, the same thing with the increase, overall cost. I think that other Schedule 211 is reasonable, but to me, mileage is important. It's less mileage than the other one. You might say now we might have another 30,000 miles on it by this time next year. Bring it up to 95, which is, I understand there's a lot more hours, but hours really aren't as important as mileage, and you know we could have a cruiser very quickly if we planned for it, and I still think 95, or let's even make the assumption 95 might be a hair too much, if I want to concede that. I think right now it's way too under to put a cruiser with a lot of life left in it to a second tier. We have a lot of life left back in that one. I understand maintenance might go up, but you know what we have in that cruiser right now, I think we could get another year out of it.
I would just ask the committee, there was an offer for all the members to go take a look at those two cruisers. As far as I know, no one has taken the chief up on that offer. I really would suggest you go sit in those cruisers. Matter of fact, go take it for a drive and see if whether you would be driving it around as a police officer in this town. I think it's unfair, you know, I think it's short-sighted not to go ahead and replace them because of the issues we've already had with these two cruisers. We're keeping them together. We've made the investment to try to keep them running. Car 6, which was the supervisor car, yeah, we could probably argue that one probably doesn't need to be replaced right away, but it has problems. You know, you're talking about cutting $13,000 out of that line. You know, between those two cars, we could probably eat up that $13,000 in repairs next year. You know, these cars, you know, you may say hours don't matter. Hours do matter in a public car. It's proven. Last year I showed you all the data, and I understand there's a disagreement on it, but if you look at all the surrounding communities, the programs they put in place are basically in line with what we're doing. If you look at the MRI report that this town paid for back in 2008, was it 2008?
I try to flush that out of my
Yeah,
memory.
2008, you know, the management of the cars was a note there, and they wanted us to continue doing the 2-1-2, but we lost track of that, and we're now behind the 8 ball on that one.
We're just
That's all I'll say.
I'm sorry. But you're trying to have 2 new vehicles, all new weapons, all new tasers, and we're still, I mean, yes, safety, comfort.
It's not about safety and comfort, and the weapon issue is, that these are all 10-year-old weapons they have to
We
be
all
replaced.
agreed on
Let's
that.
table
We all
the
agree
weapon
with that,
issue,
right.
let's stay on the
We'll get
cruisers.
to that one
Yeah.
later on.
So, I mean, those were actually the 2 lines that are probably the biggest increases, right? Because they were somewhat unexpected. The weapons were not really planned for. We should have had a better life cycle management plan around it, but 10 years happen, that's what happens.
One last thing I'd like to say, I'd just like to remind this board too, I mean, we don't know, nor should it be important what we're doing, because I truly believe we could probably get another year out of it. But we're not the ultimate decision here, and the voters might, if we keep 2 in here and recommend 2, the voters might go back and say, no, like last year, we're giving you a default, and you might have to wind up with 1. So that's all I need to say on the issue, and whenever everybody's ready to vote, I'll be ready.
Yeah, I think my only comment, right, is we ended up in that position last year, right? And the default had 2. So in reality, you could have had 1 last year, but you had a need and you got 2, right? So if you're in a default position next year, you can make that same decision again.
I won't let the cat out of the bag, but it's very highly likely that the default will be higher than the operating budget we're requesting. Just by the way it's calculated, right? So, and not that we would like to see that, but that's probably what will happen.
Okay, so we have a
And I probably
motion.
just made Jason cringe, so.
Now, yeah, I'm not gonna go there, I'm just simply going to point out that, you know, looking at whatever numbers you look at and what baseline, we can all choose whichever line we wanna look at that is, you know, the best answer to look at. We've spent a lot of time here on other things, and you guys have talked a lot about run rates and spend to date. All right, the decision we made to not do, to only replace the 2 cruisers. Look at our spend to date on the vehicle repair line. How much?
You've already paid for 4 cruisers.
How much more have we spent in that line over what we budgeted? You know, you've held me accountable for all the places where I've underspent on budget. We've spent more than twice the budget on repair because we're propping up old vehicles that by some numerical standard probably have some life in them. We can look in externally and say they work. The problem I have is that I look at this and say, we've taken these external things, I get this vehicle sitting there that's failed, and I'm watching us spend the money that we battle so carefully about, $100 here, $1,000 there. We've spent $7,600 more. We've doubled the budget on repair costs on propping up old vehicles. And I'm worried about continuing to prop up more old vehicles.
Are these costs you're talking about on the 2 vehicles that we're talking about replacing, or are they on the other?
It's an aggregate on all of, on all of them.
If some are really old,
Yeah, but the primary costs are coming out of the 2 vehicles.
The primary costs are coming from the 2 vehicles we've retained.
the 2 line vehicles.
The 2 line vehicles. And we knew that going in when we went from the 4 to 2, that we were gonna have to spend more on repair because keeping them active, regular vehicles is gonna cost us more.
What kind of repair costs are you bringing up on those vehicles? What kind of work has to be done on them?
Brakes, if there's electrical work done on one, I mean, it's all wear and tear stuff, you're
Wear
right.
and tear stuff. That-
No,
you'll
I
have
agree,
that on
some
a
of it
new
is.
vehicle, too.
Some of it is, but when you have a new car, it's, you know, there are items that,
Brakes go as quick on a new car.
I'm not saying that, I'm saying, on the new car, there's a lot less repairs because a lot of it's covered by the warranty. Some of the electrical problems would have been covered by the warranty, some of those things.
One more thing I want to bring up on that. I actually drive a 1999 Ford pickup and a 1999 Jeep Cherokee with 200,000 miles on it. And I understand money goes into it. They're fully paid off, have been for years. I know a lot of people are keeping the cars longer. There is a point where you got to put in for some non-wear and tear stuff. Water pump, alternator, you know, starter, things like that. And
Those are the things we're
around,
seeing now.
you know, 60, 70, 80,000 miles. But when you do them again, they're done. So an argument could also be made if you put extra money into a 60,000 mile vehicle this year, now it's already done. So if a starter or an alternator went in, it's done. Brakes, I know a lot of the stuff is wear and tear, it's brakes, it's a lot of, that stuff is in new vehicles also. So I just don't want to, I want to make sure the public understands. We're not trying to mislead anybody, but I want to make sure they understand it's not as clear cut as the cost of maintenance could have got us new vehicles already, because some of it is wear and tear, and we will still have it with new vehicles.
I think it's also not clear cut is because we continue to not discuss the actual wear and tear, which is the hours the vehicle runs. We want to say, this is just like my car that I drive to work every day. My car has 130,000 miles on it. It's 4 years old. I'm not about to trade it in because it's got a lot of life left in it, but I'm driving at normal hours. It's not running continually all day long. I looked at the hours on my car because it has an hour meter compared to what's on the cruisers. There's 4 times the hours on a cruiser than it's on my car.
I think we had that discussion last year about hours, and there was a lot of data that said
Went both ways.
Yep.
in both ways. So-
Well,
No, I mean,
I-
I hear your argument. Okay.
So we have a motion and a second.
Yeah.
Is there any additional discussion?
we didn't have enough already?
I just want to make other committee members who may not have had a chance.
Well, I was gonna say, you know, if you look, everything I looked at on, that I can find as far as documentation for police cars, the average life is 4 or 5 years, and 90,000 miles seems to be the magic number, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah.
We run 70 vehicles, we drive them to 120 to replace them. And
a lot of them commute back and forth to Boston, so I would say that the hours are probably as high as on a cruiser as they sit in 93 and other notorious places along the.
I would disagree. I do the same commute, and
Yeah.
still have less hours on my vehicle.
Okay.
But
Okay. Move on to voting. All those in favor of reducing line 760 by $13,250 to a net number of $51,250, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Abstained? I'm gonna need a count on that one.
Take a hand count.
Yep, please raise your hands for aye. 4. Opposed? 4.
Motion failed.
There. Motion fails. Okay. Back to the original of $64,500.
Mr. Chairman, line item 125, police wages, special officers. I'd like to move that from $85,800 to $75,000.
I'm sorry, what line was that?
25.
125, thank you.
125,
Oh, you said 425. 85,802?
to 75,000.
75,000. We have a motion by Mr. Spencer. I will second.
If I look at what we've been spending in that account, last year, we spent $81,549, and that included about $6,600 worth of Officer Bennett's money. Officer Bennett is not in this year's budget, proposed budget, in this line item. So if I back that out, then they spent about $75,000 in 2012. This year, I'm prorating them out at about $72,000, based upon what they spent to date. The problem I have with the way the budget number is built is it assumes that our two major specials will be working their full 1,600 hours, and the fact is, they don't work 1,600 hours. You know, we've looked at the actuals from prior years. They run anywhere from 1,200 to 1,300 hours. And if you look at, you've already got today's numbers, year-to-date, they're not gonna come close to that. So I think, number one, it's overfunded based upon the hours, and secondly, when I look at what we've done in the last couple of years, I think that, $75,000 is a reasonable number there.
So I would just suggest there's a couple of changes. One, Officer Bennett, yes, is not in the budget anymore, but those hours that were there, or the pool of funds that were there, were being reallocated to allow for Officer Hool to do additional DARE work, or not DARE work, but SOR, school officer work. That's been requested by the school. So that, Mike Hool is now going to be spending a little bit more time at the elementary and middle schools than he does today.
That amounts to about 200 hours. No, what was it? You recall what they said about there?
I don't recall.
It's not DARE, this is SRO. So this is the same kind of duties that Officer Coral has. He'll be spending some of his shifts out at the school and so on.
Okay, so they'll be putting about the same number of hours in, 1,100 hours.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you realize that
Yeah.
Officer Bennett's hours are being somewhat reallocated to
Yeah.
Mike. And Mike is also still one of our detectives, so in addition to those duties, he does have detective work and duties he has.
Yeah, I just look at realistically, they obviously are not spending the total amount that they can, and I can understand that. I mean, they're part-time, they have other things to do, and they're just not, you're not spending the hours there.
So if you project out the 32 hours for both those officers, you factored they're going to work 32 hours a week for at least 50 weeks, correct?
No, I did not.
That's what
32
you-
hours a week
that's what you-
that's where you get up to $1,600.
But that's what they're going to be working.
I don't think so. That's what you've been saying for 2 years, and they've yet to do it. Because they are not doing it. Okay?
That's the budget, that's what we're asking for.
I understand what you asked for, but it's one thing to ask for what you think you might do, it's another thing to get what you think what you're actually gonna
Oh, well,
spend.
but
you know.
the assignments have been redone because of the requests coming from the school. So you're going to see, in the case of one officer, you're gonna see him putting in a little bit more hours that are not detective-based hours to do patrol and SRO for duties.
And,
You're gonna
yes,
see, now that we have, Officer Lammy is now certified, he's gonna be seeing more patrol hours, he's gonna increase his hours. So there's gonna, these officers that we have in the specials are gonna start utilizing more hours. We didn't have the ability. Officer Harris unfortunately wasn't able to work due to other issues. That, I believe, will maybe changing also.
yeah, again, I just looked at your numbers that you put down here in
Yeah.
terms of hours. And again, I'll tell you that, I'm very concerned about the increase in the police budget. And this is one place where I think you've got some over budgeting.
So we're looking at the hours listed here, that they're projected for next year. About, I mean, when I just add up just the hours.
It doesn't work, because they don't have them all listed there, Cindy.
Okay, because that's what's confusing me, because just looking at, like you said, Officer Bennett isn't in
He's
this
not there.
budget. Year-to-date, we're like way over that. So I'm trying to understand why you want to reduce that when year-to-date,
You're way over what?
those hours.
Well, the problem is you don't have Officer
Okay, so if I
Cool's
said,
hours in there as it's budgeted. He's budgeted at 1,600 hours, just like Officer Cool.
Yeah,
It's budgeted for 32 hours a week.
The notes are wrong there.
Yeah, the paper notes reflected, unfortunately, last year, you may recall, we were talking about expanding detective positions, and so some of his note hours, and I didn't change the hours, because I used to provide detailed estimates for each person, and then I got the feedback that people didn't want the detailed for each. You guys would give me a bucket of a number, so I stopped providing the detail.
so the 208 hours is incorrect?
Yeah,
And it should be what? Because year-to-date has worked 1,209 hours.
16,
so, yeah, we go with,
1664.
yeah, we go with 1664 is the number that we.
They never spent
Budget.
either of them.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, we trade off in sometimes hours for, some of these officers, we'll use them not as, police officers charged to this line, we'll use them for dispatch coverage when we cover dispatch coverage. So again, if you look at our year-to-date in dispatch coverage, so I know it's the next budget you're looking at, but again, when you look at the year-to-date numbers, notice that we're $4,000 over budget there, because we trade some of those dollars off. So, we didn't use the part-time hours as an officer, we used their availability. I only have so many bodies.
You used Officer Bennett then.
Yeah, well, yeah, we use Officer Bennett, Officer Hool will spend some time over there. Primarily, that's where Officer Bennett has been this year, so.
You don't see
the-
it though.
Right, the 4,000 over budget we are there is not reflected here. So it's been a little bit of movement between those two.
I would ask for consideration that when you look at Officer Coral and Officer Hool, to consider the budget at 1,600 hours.
John, they'll never spend it,
I don't see how we're not going to, based on the hours that we're running right now.
because they
And
didn't.
based on the fact that we're being asked to do more services with those two officers.
Those are the same words that we heard last year, and they're not spending them this year.
So
And you budget them for this year.
to date, Officer Coral has got 1,228 hours.
Right.
Right,
And he's projected next year at 1,664.
yeah.
Considering we still have a couple of months, month and a half, I don't know as of
This was
10/9.
as of the 9th.
So not quite 2 months left to go. What's that going to bring him up to?
Well, let's assume 32,
I mean, you can even take the dollars and prorate them out.
1,500.
Another 1,500
I would say that we're probably targeting for Coral around 1,500 hours.
Never.
That's what he's targeted for, assuming his primary duties is the school, he's there at least 32 hours every week. So, I mean, he pulls duties for 32 hours every week. If you assume that, he's gonna come close to 1,500 hours. So you're basically telling us we can't cover the schools the hours we wanna cover.
Darren, I'm not telling you that. I'm telling you the
I know you're not
fact- the
telling
fact-
us
the
that. We
facts
gotta-
don't
how are we gonna
support-
pay
Look,
for it,
I'm just
Bill?
telling you,
How are we gonna pay for it, Bill?
never mind.
I'm asking you to consider 1,500 hours, I said 1,600, I'm asking you to consider 1,500 hours for those two officers, readjust your number to match that up, and I think it'd be fine. As much as I still think we're shorting it.
I think 75,000 is plenty of money for you for this account.
Okay.
Personally. What the committee feels, that's their business.
We have a motion and a second. Again, the motion is to reduce line 125 by $10,800 to a net number of $75,000. Final discussion from other committee members? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Abstained.
And vote again?
Yep, I think it's 350. For 4?
In favor of the
In
motion.
favor, so 4-0. Motion fails. Okay. We are back to the original number of
3909.
had to remove my 10,000. 1,000, or $1,390,934. Additional motions? I'd like to make a motion to reduce line 149, which is overtime training, by $5,000
Second.
to a net number of $32,303. After considering the discussion that we had a few weeks ago, looking at the increased costs for overtime training that we talked about, and looking at spend, I think that this is just budgeted too high. It's that simple. Year to date, you're at 11,647.64 for spend, right? We budgeted 24,076, right? So you're not even half of what we budgeted, considering the fact that there's additional training towards the end of this year, correct?
Yep. Based on the numbers for expected remaining training that Lieutenant Donnelly gave me, so based on where we are and what is outstanding, in fact, we are accruing some of those overtime hours as we sit here tonight.
Yeah, we're on nighttime shooting practice.
They're on nighttime shooting practice. I'm showing us at finishing the year at 23,178.
Okay.
So I'm, in roughly, we're about halfway through the spend that we expect to see for the year there.
Do you think you're gonna be able to spend that between now and the end of the year? I mean, realistically, we're entering into the holiday season, Thanksgiving, Christmas. Can you tell me with some degree of certainty that you're gonna be able to actually execute in the next?
I asked
35 working days.
Lieutenant Donnelly for what is remaining, what is your estimate, what are our remaining hours of exposure?
And these are this is training that's already scheduled, ready to go.
And that is, that is the information I received back from the lieutenant on it. So, that.
Okay.
Mr. Cutter, I'm sorry, what was the exact number, your new proposed number for that line?
32,303.
Yep.
A difference of 5,000.
I obviously going to tend to agree with Mr. Cutter on this. There's a bigger picture as it stands now. When we go to vote on the bottom line, I'm not going to support the police budget. I know they're doing a good job. The town is trying to be very lean, but when you look at each one of these lines, some make sense to some don't, but in the big picture, I still think it's important we make some tough decisions. So I want to support Mr. Cutter's motion here. Either way, I won't be supporting the bottom line.
Additional discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstained? Motion carries 602. Did I say 602? 620, excuse me. Right. Additional discussions or amendments to line items?
New bottom line, please.
There is a present new bottom line of $1,385,934. I'd like to make another motion back on the line 760 cruiser purchase. I didn't want to amend Mr. Spencer's original motion because it was really for a completely different reason. I'd like to reduce that by $3,000, which is the differential so we're provided between cruisers in the SUV body type as well as sedan type. I don't think the town, oh, sorry, I guess I need a second.
Second.
And I was just gonna say, Mr. Cutter, I wouldn't suggest going down the path of saying you're gonna tell the town to buy sedans versus SUVs.
You can
I
do
would just
whatever
say,
you want.
I would just say, you're reducing it by $3,000, because at that point, you're, from your seat, you're trying to tell the police department what they need for equipment, and I wouldn't suggest doing that.
All I'm suggesting, Mr. Brunel, is I don't believe there's a need in our community for 4 SUVs.
May I? I mean, this is a tough one for me, because if you're gonna buy the darn cruisers, you get the SUV, okay? So, my thing is, you don't need the extra one. I think we all know where I stand on that, but if you're gonna buy one, get the SUV. Having said that, you know, I spent a lot of time looking at each line item, and I'm gonna keep to your point, Mr. Cutter, here, because I don't want you to think I'm getting off track here. You know, it's easy when we're sitting here and you go line item, everything makes sense. Every line makes sense. And it's tough to cut. But when you look at the big picture, there's room. Last year was proved. We needed that $70,000 in the budget. You guys did very well without that 70, because the voters ordered you to not have that $70,000. I do not support buying, choosing a cruiser instead of an SUV. I want to make that clear. I think if you're going to buy one, make it an SUV. However, I am going to support Mr. Cutter on the cut of $3,000, and I'd still recommend you buying the SUV, because the way I stand now in this budget, I'd take any cut where I can get it, quite honestly. And I know you guys can grab money from other lines, and you'll still do what you believe is necessary, as was proved last year with the default budget. So I will support Mr. Cutter when it votes.
I would just only interject that, yeah, we did operate under a reduced budget, but there are things that should have been done that aren't being done. There are things that we slowed down because we didn't have the funds. So to say that we survived, we have survived, obviously, and we continue to provide the services we believe the community want. But there are other things in the background that the community would not see that are not getting done. Some of it's just efficiency stuff, some of it's office work, that kind of thing. But we did, you know, we did reduce our spending by that $70,000. So there were programs that we asked for that didn't have.
And we survived just well.
But remember, every time we delay something, it just gets more costly and it causes more of an issue down the road.
And I know, and you know, I'm thinking, you know, when we're in this room, I've always said when I was not a member of this board, I always spoke to people that sit in these rooms many times in a bubble. Not because we're mean or ignorant or anything else, it's because you're in a bubble. I try not to get in that same bubble, although sometimes I fall into it. But the homeowner's the same thing too. They get increases that they have to get. There's no choice. The same amount of money's coming in because they can't just reach into somebody else's pocket, and they have to make do, and stuff doesn't get done. And we know that. But you know what the good news is? It's cyclical. Right now, we're in crappy times, and my guess is it's not going to be any better, probably worse this upcoming year. There's no doubt it will get better down the road, and that's where now you go to the voters, and we all agree, and you say, now we really need money because we've neglected some stuff. Some stuff we're neglecting, and some stuff is choices of the
I don't
selectmen
have a number.
to maintain programs and different things. So these are what the tough choices that when we all ran for these offices, we all said we're going to make.
We have a motion and a second. Additional discussion? All those in favor of reducing line 760 by $3,000, please say aye.
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 Excuse me, no. I didn't go aye. I was trying to
Pull it back.
It's all take backs.
vote. Opposed.
Opposed.
Abstained? Motion carries 5-3-0.
New bottom line, Mr. Cutter.
Bottom line of $1,382,934.
Published out to you.
Well, we're on a roll here.
This one hasn't published out yet.
I want to come back to, since you came back to the cars, I'd like to come back to the specials and move that from 85,800 to 78,000? 79,000?
I'm sorry, what line is that, Bill?
Even 80.
No, that's, no.
We have a motion by Mr. Spencer.
125 to $79,000.
79,000. Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Pascucci. Discussion.
I have no more to say than I haven't already said.
I have no more to say than I already said, too.
And I'm yielding to you, John.
I'm
Okay, all those in favor of reducing line 125 special officers by $6,800 to a net number of 79,000, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstains? Motion carries 5-3-0.
Who swung that time?
Me?
You support it, is that what you said?
No, I said, who swung that time?
No to yes.
Okay,
Yeah, it is.
okay.
Oh, that's what it was, 2, right?
3.
I think it's more appropriate than the 75.
All right.
Just
We-
checking.
We have a new bottom line of $1,376,134.
What was the total we cut out so far tonight?
Not much.
4,000?
14.
$14,800.
I'd like to, oh, I gotta find my line item.
How much was that last reduction? 5,800?
The last reduction was $6,800.
Oh, 6, okay.
I gotta find my line item, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
While you're doing that, can I make another one?
Yep. It's probably the same one.
I would like to make a motion to reduce office supplies line 620 by $700.
Second.
How much?
700.
700?
We have a motion and a second. You have spent $1,928.92. Projecting out, looking at your year-to-date or through December, I believe this account is actually approximately $50 too high.
And you'll notice that we went from 2,300 to 2,000 in the default budget.
Yes.
The additional 1,300, that note is accurate, is moving into a new records management program, which we suspended any major movement on that this year.
Because of the default.
Because of the default, that was the place. So our core number will, we're going to trend higher than 2,000. So this will continue to push the records management piece probably further out.
What is exactly the records management piece?
We're trying to reduce what we keep in the old-style cabinets down to a more condensed system. So we're, between record management, it's all new folders, new hangers, new cabinets to have them all in this, so we use a smaller space, basically.
Could we cut back on labor?
We've already cut the labor on that to zero because our own people are doing it in between other things.
So with this new system, it's not going to save any money on labor. It'll save the space for some file cabinets.
Basically, we're out of space for files. We had to adopt something to be able to accommodate more record keeping, because we are required to keep certain records, so this is a way to achieve it in the same space we currently have today.
So when you're saying records, could some of the, without buying more file cabinets, could some of the current files go into boxes and then put in the corner or
So-
under a desk and then?
The files that are there, in the
I
police
don't have any
department-
more. I don't have any more corners to put them in.
Yeah.
But part of what this is sort of a systematic overhaul of what we keep, how we keep things. So we're more efficient in the way we store them. We're more, we're retaining what needs to be retained. We've made part of that transition this year in kind of purging a number of the old pieces we didn't need because we had outgrown the room we were in. We've reclaimed a lot of that room. And the next step now is actually implementing, as new records come in, the system that will keep the growth from wildly expanding. Until we started the first phase this year, we had filled that room, and we were trying to figure out where we were going next in terms of storage. We're implementing, I mean, you've seen kind of the same thing over in the general government buildings line. We're doing the same thing over on the town hall side. We've begun implementing that on our side with the hopes of actually reclaiming part of the back meeting room as a meeting room.
So obviously, I'm all for, more efficient records management. And this is why this year is such a very, very tough year for me personally, because I know it's the burden, tax burden. So when we heard Mr. Brunel say, some things haven't gotten done, and I don't know what they all are, but this is obviously one of the things that haven't gotten done, and that's okay. So what? We have we have the file cabinets there, and we're living in a little bit clutter, but we'll save the taxpayers we're not even saving the taxpayers money, we're giving them a slightly less tax increase. So,
That is correct. I just want to be clear that it would still be a $600, which is a 23% increase over current year.
and these are still, again, I just want to keep going back to, we're making some tough decisions this year, but that's what's expected of us, and that's what's expected of the governing bodies too. Prioritize, do our best, and make sure we don't put any unnecessary additional burden on the taxpayers unless it's absolutely necessary, because they are making severe sacrifices in their lives, so there should be some here too. So I support your motion, Mr. Cutter.
Additional discussion? Okay. All those in favor of reducing line 620 by $700 to a net number of $2,600, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstained. Motion carries 6-0.
New bottom line.
We have a new bottom line of $1,375,434.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion on line 740, equipment purchases. I'd like to move that from $14,777 to $10,027.
Second.
We have a
Yeah.
motion.
Go ahead.
No, we have a motion by Mr. Spencer and a second by Mr. Pascucci.
And I'm really making it so we can have a discussion on it. What I did is I took your taser replacement, rather than 50-50, I made it 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. And I'd be interested in knowing what the ramifications of doing that would be. I'd replace a third rather than a half this next year.
If I recall, I mean, the problem is that the devices we have today are not repairable anymore, so we're keeping them together based on the inventory we already have today. Going to a third, I'm not.
Yeah, it stretches out the uncertainty. I mean, with the devices we have now that are completely out of service, we would have started this, in the ideal world, you don't like having mixed equipment. I mean,
Right.
the chief and I started this conversation between ourselves at the full replacement. We moved back to a half, saying it's not optimal, but I can get most of my frontline people with the same equipment. The third, the trade-off is going to probably be, you'll have mixed devices, in regular active service.
But they work? Would they
For
work?
now, they work, but as they fail,
Yeah.
so the risk we run is that, by stretching that timetable out a little bit, we may hit a point in year 2 where I can't stay on a third because, I've dropped a few out.
But if we went a third next year, and then the following year replaced them all, because we won't be buying new weapons the following year.
Yeah, I mean, if you did a third and 2/3, you'd be able to get your
If-
worst.
If you find it's an issue.
Yeah, right. I mean, if you get your worst ones, I mean, that again assumes a regular rate of, that they don't all fail. I mean, I can't answer with any
I would-
certainty.
Okay.
If I had my druthers, the way you're approaching it, it'd be the way I suggest would be a good way to approach it. Not touching the actual firearms, the duty weapons, to me makes
Exactly.
perfect sense, and I think everyone will be happy with that. I think the risk is, next year we're coming into the full boat, because we had to replace them all, because we had more failures. But you're right, that line will be reduced by that cost anyway, so. I think it's, I'm stating an opinion of my own, I cannot commit to anything else. As I said, I may get pulled over.
I gotta watch how you vote.
Can you tell me what the failure syndrome on the tasers are?
They're just old, the batteries, chargers, it's just, they're 10 years old, I guess, at this point.
Not quite, I was there for that, but the,
Well, they're,
yeah.
their
I'm
life
just
their
kinda-
life expectancy is
I'm
over.
just trying to figure out what fails on them that, because they're not used very often.
No,
They're holstered most of the time.
yeah,
Well, they're
it's,
test shotted.
yeah, it's
Yeah, how many
batteries.
car-
are the
How many
thing.
cartridges you go through a year? 35 according to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, that's not like a lot of wear and tear. I imagine there's probably departments use 35 a day.
Yeah, I think the big driver is that the manufacturer no longer supports them. We can't
Right.
get parts for them, so we have to repair them. We're repairing them from taking parts from other ones to.
Okay, I'm just kind
Yeah.
of, I'm just trying to
That's-
find out
that's
what
all
the
that
fail,
is, yeah.
what the failure mode
Right.
is.
And there were, I mean, yeah, that's, to my understanding, that is the issue, is that the parts aren't available for it. We have cartridge failures, so we can't get new cartridges and stuff like that for it, is what my understanding was. And the big thing was the manufacturer doesn't support them
So
anymore.
there's no cartridges for them?
Not
Once
through
you
the
fire it, you're done, pretty much?
That I don't know,
Well,
that's a consumable. I think the cartridge is probably, it's the fire mechanisms, the
Right.
pins, it's the wires and stuff like that.
Well, maybe you don't need 21 new weapons, things can be prioritized.
No, we
Yeah.
do need 21 new weapons.
All at the same time.
They're all all the duty weapons were issued the same period of time. The sights, the ISO sets are gone or wearing down, and they're beyond the manufacturer's recommendation for duty. So that's why they're coming forward.
Night sights?
Yeah.
Okay, now, I'm torn on that one. You could replace night sights. I mean, you could slide them out, put new ones in, so the guns are probably okay. That's all I want to say on that subject. I mean, I understand the night sights are
Well, no,
wearing
because
down.
at 10 years, they'll be rehab. The cost of the rehab is almost as much as buying a new one, so through this program. So that's why it makes more sense just to replace all of them. And we're getting a trade-in value for all of them, too, so.
Kind of funny, as a budget committee, being on the budget committee one way or another, or as a selectman, this is the third time in my life cycle that I've seen these weapons replaced.
We've been around for 30 years now.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Additional discussion? All those in favor of reducing line 740 by $4,750 to a net number of $10,027, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstained? Motion carries 710.
Can you give me that?
New
I've
bottle?
managed to miss the number twice now.
Is it $4,700?
$4,750 was the reduction.
Okay.
The new line number is $10,027.
Yep,
A
okay.
new bottom line of $1,370,684.
No, 1,376,000,
$1,370,684.
70,000. Yeah, I just looked at it, I was high on the other one.
Okay.
No, well, I have,
No.
I just, well, oh,
I
I'm
don't have
sorry.
it down here.
I just have a question, because I want to make sure I understand the line here. 660?
Yeah.
Okay.
1,370,684, 370.
Oh, six.
The description.
This is
what it says.
vehicles, repairs, and maintenance.
Correct. What it says under there, how did we get to that number of 14,000? I want to make sure I'm adding it up right.
The routine on the new vehicles is $1,000 per vehicle.
Those are the two we just purchased this year?
Right,
Okay.
right. That's sort of the routine consumables, non-warranty repairs.
Got it.
The two detail vehicles, were estimated about $3,000 each.
And those are the ones that have been off service for a
Yeah,
while, but just for...
they're simply a victim of age at this
Right.
point.
They're the
And
ones that sit
again-
on the highway when they're doing I mean, on the road when
Yeah,
they're doing
exactly.
construction,
And,
okay?
and we charge a vehicle fee for those. Those kind of carry their own freight. The 20 grand credit you see in the bottom line.
Is from that,
right.
We basically figure those, they pay their own way.
Okay.
And then $2,000 for cruisers pending replacement. And that is to get us from the beginning of the calendar budget year to the point that we get those replacement vehicles in service. Because we may say, hey, we're buying 2 new vehicles. They don't magically turn up January 1. I got to limp along with the 2 vehicles that I have. So I'm saying $2,000 each on those until we get replacement vehicles here and in service.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to take line 660 and deduct 2,000 from it, please, and make it 12,000.
We have a motion by Mr. Pascucci, second.
Second.
I think, you know, Ed, like anything else, it's, you know, we're all just speculating here, and I understand from what we heard that those two vehicles that now the money is in the budget to replace, a lot has been done to them. So there's a lot in that line, and I'm guessing for a couple months, if we get right on it and place an order and get them in service as quick as possible, we could we could limp through it without that $2,000 and use the rest of that vehicle repairs and maintenance to get through till we get the new ones. And hopefully it'll get passed and they'll get those right away. That's my rationale for cutting it.
So you're basically removing the $2,000 that we put in there for the.
For those
Okay.
two now to be replaced vehicles, yes.
Additional discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Abstained?
What was the number?
$2,000.
Motion carries 6-1-0.
What'd you reduce it to?
2,000, I'm sorry.
Okay.
No, shouldn't it be 710?
12,000.
7-1-0, excuse me, excuse me.
I get my specials down the road for long. Almost.
We have a new bottom line of $1,368,684.
Okay.
In case somebody asks, that's the total net change of $22,250. Additional discussion? Hearing none. All those in moving forward with $1,368,684 for line 4210.1, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Aye. Abstained? Motion carries 5-3-0, if I heard that correctly. Okay.
Okay. Moving on to 4210.50.
Yes, please.
Please support. I'd like to move the bottom line of $142,657.
We have a motion by Mr. Brunel,
Second.
a second by Mr. Spencer. Discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of moving $142,656 for account 4210.5, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 8-0-0.
Must be dreaming.
What's up? What are you laughing
I expected, I just,
at? Want to go back to it?
no,
No.
no, no. No, it's
No,
very close.
no.
What did I miss?
Nothing.
Yeah, good luck with that one, so,
All right, moving to,
That's the way I felt too, Jason.
yeah, exactly.
moving to 4411.2 Mosquito Control District. I'd like to move the bottom line of $29,950.
Second.
$29,950?
Yes. Am I wrong?
Nope.
I have $30,240.
I did 29,950.
You don't have the reduction of,
Yeah, the selectmen's budget should have come through at 29,950.
That's the one I have, yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
the selectmen
I'm
took
going
an
off old
act.
numbers, clearly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
29,950.
yeah, I think you took an earlier version that was pre-selectmen.
Then I don't need to make any reduction.
Makes it easy.
Yeah, and just to know, I mean, the selectmen decided to remove all the administrative costs, except for the contract out of it, because we, you know, $200 was there, can be absorbed at the town side, so it was just to clean up the budget.
Okay. Additional discussion? All those in favor of approving $29,950 for account 4411.2, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 8-0-0.
Okay,
I'm sorry,
moving
who's
on.
seconding that? It was.
I did.
Okay, moving to 4414.10, animal control. I'd like to move the bottom line of $15,122.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Brunel and a second by Mr. Spencer. Discussion. All those in favor of moving 15,122 for 4414.1, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 800.
Okay, moving on, 4415, health agencies. They move the bottom line budget of $2,500.
A motion by Mr. Brunel. I will second.
I have a motion.
Please.
Go ahead.
I'd like to move from the bottom line from $2,500 to $1,900.
Second.
We
Which
have a
is-
motion by Mr. Spencer and a second by Mr. Pascucci.
Which is the same that we have in this year's budget. In the other items, the other ones that are listed there that I assume are going to be on the warrant article, you'll notice that the selectmen didn't request the full amount on the warrant article for those agencies, yet in the case of this one that's going in the budget, they requested the full amount. It made no sense to me that they treat this one any different than we treated the ones that go in the warrant article. So that's why I moved that we hold the number.
If I may, and just kind of rethinking about some of the discussions that we've had, right? There are community members with children that benefit or use this service.
Well, it's more, we're required to have the service through the police department. So the police department leverages it when anytime there's a juvenile involved in any kind of situation. So when they requested it, we sort of feel that it's a good value for our money. Matter of fact, we've had events down there recently, so we use them consistently throughout the year. It almost argues that this line should be pulled down and put in the police budget, but it's been living here forever, so that's why it stays here.
But it's not a cost per service, it's a donation to the agency, and they don't bill us back for the cost for
They
service.
make a recommendation, so we felt the recommendation was
As
warranted.
do the other agencies who also provide services to our citizens, which you do not go by.
Well, the warrant hasn't been constructed yet, so the warrant may have those requests in there.
Boy, I hope not, but
But, well, the idea is, I mean, obviously, a deliberative, someone can come in and move him around too. We haven't really decided, but you're right, we didn't do that. But we
Yeah.
do,
Yeah,
we
you
have
do
a
that,
value, we
I'll
have a
vote-
service we use
I'll
here.
vote to put it back in the operating budget then, if you do that. But anyway, my rationale was, you
Yep.
know,
Understood.
bottom line.
Child Advocacy Center also takes private donations, right? Anybody can go up if they want and donate, right?
Any
Like
organization
any
does.
other organization, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Additional discussion? All those in favor of reducing
Bottom line.
the bottom line? To $1,900 or a reduction of $600, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Oh,
Abstained? Motion carries 530.
I guess we can move on, or we're gonna vote? We didn't do a line reduction, did a bottom line reduction, so we're done, right?
Yeah?
Yeah, that
Okay,
was-
so, yeah.
So I guess we'll move to 4150.2, information technology. I'd like to move the bottom line, 4150.20, information technology, bottom line of $48,844.
We have a motion by Mr. Brunel. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Spencer.
Sorry, could you repeat that amount?
$48,844.
No, I didn't get any questions, so I'm assuming there are no questions. But fire away.
Discussion.
Fire away.
Titled Information Technology, don't look at me.
You just bought a computer.
That's right.
This is for the rest of you guys to figure out, just all.
We're looking to you.
Discussion.
Are you looking at me? There's not really much to discuss in there.
No, I mean, you took the
Yep.
major stuff out of it already.
Every year I try.
Well, you're buying it this year, right?
Well, the
Well,
big
the
leap.
big item was the P.
Yeah, the big leap was the phone and video system.
When I came in with the budget to the board, it was to be flat, just to maintain what we have. There was no major, just regular life cycle stuff. The police department was put into this budget because of it, and we found a way to deal with that this
Yeah.
year. It's not necessarily an IT thing, it's a police department thing, but.
That was good.
I do have a question, and it's really based upon the updated expenses that we received last Friday.
Yep.
So the updated numbers have shown a year-to-date of $5,623.26. We're budgeting $12,765 for the equipment maintenance. I don't see you spending.
Yeah, you do.
And
So
that's
there
why I'm
are, so
asking
you're talking about 6:30, right?
6:30.
Yeah, so 6:30 is with all the things that are outstanding. We have invoices coming for the end of the year and so on. We'll probably have, based on the forecast, $500 left. So,
What was, I can look this up, I don't know if you have it handy.
what's that?
The expenses for last year, the year-to-date, or the total.
I don't know if you can, because last year it did not represent the fire department costs going into it. There's a lot of costs that went into the equipment side. So we've as you know, since we've consolidated all the services into one IT budget now. It's not spread across any of the departments. Highway, the incinerator, town clerk, everything is now consolidated into this one thing. So you, yeah, look at it. I think it's close.
I can get you into the ballpark, I think. I don't have last year's
Okay.
full, but let me just see if I have something that's at least informative here.
While Jason's looking, can I ask another question?
Please.
On the computers for the cruisers, $11,000 for two of them?
I'm not asking for that this year.
Oh, I'm sorry, I got the wrong line, I'm sorry.
Yeah. If you remember, just so you know, the cruises, the two of them, they're $5,500 a piece about, fully delivered. And they're hardened machines. They're, but they were paid for out of the detail lines.
Oh, okay.
So they were carried there, but they were originally moved out of detail lines. So, the only thing we carry now is just the mains on it.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have a good report that shows me that from last year.
Okay. We have a motion to the second. Final discussion?
If I can just add one thing, I know you look at the number, most of the costs are pretty much defined costs in the maintenance line. The only discretionary, if you want to call it discretionary, and I say that just because it's what it is, it's the extra $2,500 for miscellaneous stuff throughout the year. Throughout the year, I replacing keyboards, I got UPSs, I got different odds and ends that fail. So that's pretty much the only place that there's any, everything else is a set contract or a set expense that's gonna happen next year.
Hearing none. All those in favor of approving $48,844 for 4150.2, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Abstained? Motion carries 710.
All right, final one of the evening, 4550.2, library. Make a motion that we approve 4550.20 library for the bottom line number of $202,680.
Motion by Mr. Brunel, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Spencer. I'm seeing a trend here. Motion and second.
Pardon?
I'm seeing a trend of motion and second, that's all.
I'd like to
Discussion.
move, are we ready?
Yes.
I'd like to move the bottom line number from $202,680 to $200,958.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I went through the proposed budget and what they spent last year, what they spent year-to-date, and thought the telephone was slightly overstated by $81. Electricity, looked like that was overstated, and so I kept that right at the 2013 budget number. And on the other one, the equipment maintenance and repair. In 2012, they spent $1,566. Year-to-date, this year is $522, and they were budgeting $3,000, so I budgeted them at $1,500. And since we're really talking about a bottom line number, we're not changing the library individual line item. So, but that's how I came up with the number I came up with. It was a reduction of $1,722.
Additional discussion? Yeah, I took a look at the lines too, and, I agree it's a little high. I was more in the $1,500 ballpark, but it's close. All those in favor of the motion to reduce by $1,722 to a net number of $200,958, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Abstained? Motion carries 7-1-0. And that is the bottom line number as well.
Parent-teacher conferences are now over. Thank you, everyone.
I think that concludes the town business, right?
Have a good night.
I'm here until the end.
Almost.
Almost, well, for this evening, yes, it concludes this evening's
Yes,
activities.
that includes the voting for this evening.
I do have a town question, though.
Fire away.
Hold on. School first. Okay,
Could I have my town question?
if you'd like.
We got your revenue.
Yep.
Have you also taken a shot at what the valuation is gonna be?
Not yet, but I will have that shortly.
Okay,
So, yeah,
send it out when you get it.
yeah, that's my one missing
Yeah.
number I needed to.
Moving on to school business, Mr. Bork.
Thank you. Actually, not sure who this question gets posed to, but it came up at our meeting the other night. We were drafting a listing of expenditures using impact fees, and just wondering how much detail needs to go into that.
For
Such-
use of impact fees?
Yeah.
A lot, and
A lot.
it's the Board of Selectmen that you have to go to,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
the Budget Committee doesn't have any oversight over it, but.
Okay. So like if we were saying like cameras for GMS, you have to be very specific as far as what cameras.
No,
No,
but cameras, but
the-
what's your
why?
justification for it?
Why and how is it growth related?
Yes.
Can only use impact fees for expansion of services. So how do cameras expand services is the question. And that the selectmen have to ask.
Yep. And it always involves lawyers.
Yeah, and feel free to have, Frank and Brian send me their notes, and I'll
Okay.
suggest,
Alright.
if we need to reform it.
Okay. Along with that, as far as our final budget number, which you'll be seeing anyway, I don't know, Jody.
Yes.
Already gave them the-
Yes, the committee has received hard copies
Okay.
of the budget. Thank you very much.
And obviously, you'll be going through them with detail, but, I mean, as it stands, it's $67,000 less than this year. Last thing, which I know Michelle also passed out, was enrollment. Our last enrollment numbers are still right as they were at 1437.
I think that's included in the binders at the back.
Okay.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yep.
Got it.
That's the current enrollment. Yep. Did you get a forecast for future enrollments?
No.
Are you going to get one? Usually the school gets one from the School Board Association.
Yeah, projections for using the current enrollment and projecting out 3
Or
years,
next-
10 years.
next- No, I haven't seen it.
Well, that's what your budget ought to be based on.
We can call Dean Mitchner tomorrow. We can call Dean.
You didn't ask for it?
We didn't, I haven't seen it yet. Usually we see it early in this.
Yeah, I mean, this is,
Yeah,
they
I
should have
know,
had it
it's
by
kinda
now.
late. So that was actually on my to-do list to call him.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what the numbers are, but that's just
Yeah.
the point.
I
You
will
had-
give him a call.
Mr. Spencer, you had asked for enrollment projections on the 8th, and that request was forwarded over to Mr. York.
Yeah. fact of the matter is, next year's budget is based upon what the enrollment projections are for next year. The school can decide how they want to do those projections, but traditionally it's been based upon what the school board association gives you as a number.
Any other updates? No? Great, thank you very much. Moving on to the Planning and Building Advisory Committee update.
The meeting on the 29th was canceled because they had not gathered all the information they needed yet, and I haven't heard if there's any additional plans to meet.
Okay, so you had that one initial
The
meeting?
one initial meeting, we were supposed to meet the 29th to review, I believe, GMS. They hadn't finished gathering the data. So hopefully I'm in the email loop now.
Okay, moving on.
Is that with your official email?
Yep.
Member input. Hearing none. Public input. No public input this evening. That concludes our meeting for this evening. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Motion by myself.
Oh, you did?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
I didn't hear who did that, I'm looking for the
Yeah. And a second by Mr. Valencourt. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries 8-0-0. As a reminder, our next meeting will be next Thursday, the 21st, and we will be going through the school review. Okay, thank you very much. See you next Thursday.
We do have the schedule for the school, right?
Yeah, this is the
I sent it to you.
Yeah, okay.
Do you have it?
I probably do.
Let's see here.
Next up for next week is executive summary. They're going to go over the overview of new and expanded positions. And then we're reviewing school board, SAU, and curriculum.
Okay. Have to check.
Would you be able to send that again in an email?
Happy to.
Thank you very much.
No problem.
I was gonna say, what, yeah, wasn't the email.
Actually, I have a note here. I delivered it on November. No, that's not it. Never mind. That's today. Don't sound so chipper.
So tired.
I'm getting old.
Hey, he's not there.
A lot of renovations. They can't kill us. And then we go back and forth to the house to move stuff out.
Here.
Awesome. That's all right, I'm definitely here, so.
You know, there's hope for that kind of stuff now. One of the guys at work that was deaf in his right ear,
You know what it was from?
just had surgery, and then they took all the little bones out.
Anybody can get into
They
the
like
cloud.
cleaned the whole assembly, put it all back together.
Somebody hacks it.
Really?
He has hearing returned.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know what they
If it's
said
in
it was
the air,
from?
anybody can get
Was
to it,
some
right?
kind of virus. Well,
I
a
believe
year
that's Carrie
later,
Douglas,
I ended up with shingles.
one who ran.
Yeah, that was Carrie.
Is that Carrie?
That was Carrie
Didn't
Douglas.
recognize her at all.
More pain than
Yeah.
rash. The doctor said that's what this is from.
But she was short.
Yeah,
That's the nervous system.
right. It's amazing that they can fix some of that stuff now. They
I
did a
would
little
love to
incision
have the
behind his
hearing
ear, and they went in and took all the little, like I said, they took all the little bones out and stuff,
Yeah.
and kind of rebuilt the thing.
It's
Take
constantly
at
like
least an
ringing.
hour to figure out what they did here.
Yeah, that's what he had.
I know, all new
You know,
people.
I'm looking at all these behind, all these separate.
Yeah, I'm
Kids go to sleep by
Very
reading.
distracting.
It's fun.
And is there a summary somewhere?
hopefully. Good night,
Nice,
guys.
Cindy.
I will be here
I don't know.
next
I
Thursday.
don't know. I'm stepping down all of it.
The first week of December.
So what
I
we
will
just
have a
went through,
conflict on
moving and renovating and
I know, but who else? I mean, it was 4-4. Who were the ones that voted for?
$8,000 later.
Be here Thursday.
We're only renting.
Tuesday, December 3rd.
Yeah.
Well, a friend of mine owns a house, horses, you know,
Ohio.
and my dad would take care of horses for 3 years
That date just finalized today.
with our home.
Even if it was
so
cut, they would've did it anyway.
we couldn't work.
Even if it was cut, they would've bought two anyway.
5 years, so that's enough. HSBC.
Good reasonable.
That's what he wants.
But I wasn't gonna argue.
And then,
So
we're
I'm
definitely going to miss
sorry?
Where do you live?
One